You wake up on a Tuesday morning. Normal alarm, normal bedroom, normal life. Except your phone is melting. Not the screen, not literally, but it hasn't stopped vibrating since 4 a.m., and there are 2,300 notifications and 47 missed calls and an email from someone at the US Securities and Exchange Commission. Overnight, and nobody can explain why, every asset Elon Musk owns has transferred to you. Tesla, SpaceX, X, The Boring Company, Neuralink, XAI, the whole thing, every share, every subsidiary, every patent, every debt. Your net worth as of this moment is approximately $300 billion. $300 billion. You are now the richest person on Earth. You lie there for a second, and then your second thought, right after the disbelief, is the one that's going to follow you for the rest of this video. This money comes with a life attached to it, and that life already has enemies. The first call you take is from a number you don't recognize. It's the head of Tesla's investor relations. She's been trying to reach you since 5 a.m. because the Tokyo market opened and Tesla dropped 4% in the first 20 minutes of trading. 4% of Tesla is roughly $25 billion in market cap. Gone before you had your first cup of coffee. She's asking for a statement. She needs to know if there's a plan. She needs to know who you are. You don't know what to say because you don't even know what Tesla's Q3 earnings guidance was. She tells you there's a board meeting at 9 a.m. You're expected to be on it. You make some tea. On your second notification scroll, you find out that you are currently being discussed on 3 separate Senate floors. Because this wealth doesn't just make you rich, it makes you the largest single private owner of infrastructure in the United States. SpaceX runs Starlink, which provides internet to the US military in active conflict zones. X is a social platform used by 600 million people and every major government on Earth. You woke up this morning a private citizen. You are no longer a private citizen. This is what $300 billion looks like at 6:30 in the morning. Let's talk about what you actually have, because the number sounds simple. $300 billion. $300 billion. But almost none of it is money. 80% of this fortune exists as stock in companies that you now control, which means if you tried to sell it, the act of selling would destroy the value. If you dumped your entire Tesla position tomorrow, Tesla's stock wouldn't just fall, it would collapse. You'd trigger a market-wide panic. Government investigations. You'd start with $300 billion and end with maybe $80 billion and a federal subpoena. So the money is frozen. Your CFO, yes, you now have a CFO, explains that your actual liquid cash is somewhere around $3 to $5 billion. $3 to $5 billion. And that's the number you have to actually live on. Then she tells you your annual obligations. $400 million in loan interest. You inherited the debt, too. $200 million in security contracts across all properties. $600 million in payroll across companies you now technically run. None of this is optional. These are existing contracts. Signed, legal, enforceable. You are the richest person on Earth and you have a cash flow problem on day one. Here's what nobody tells you about inheriting a name this size. The fortune doesn't come alone. It comes with a decade of public history that isn't yours. Everything he ever said, every tweet, every controversy, every position he's taken on immigration, on politics, on free speech, on his ex-wives, on his children. People have feelings about all of it. Strong feelings. And those feelings are now pointed at you. Within 24 hours, you have 40 million new followers across his old social accounts. You also have death threats. Real ones. Documented. 3 of them specific enough that your security team files them with the FBI. You haven't said a single word in public yet. You don't need to. You inherited the target. Your PR team.
What's the plan?
12 people. asks you a question you are not prepared for. What do you want people to think about you? Maintaining the persona means every opinion he held becomes one you're implicitly endorsing. Rebranding means publicly distancing yourself from the source of the fortune paying for this meeting. You didn't inherit a net worth. You inherited a narrative. And the world's already decided how it ends. On day 3, you tour a SpaceX facility. Because you own it. The engineers are polite. They walk you through a mission brief. There's a launch scheduled in 11 days. They look at you like you might say something important. You nod and say,
"Looks good."
"Looks good." That becomes a quote in a space industry newsletter the next morning. The CEO of Space asks you privately what your priorities are. Mars, you say, because that's what you've read. He nods slowly.
What timeline
He
are you
asks
targeting?
specifically about the
What's your
timeline,
position on
about the budget reallocation, about the
What
fuel
happens with
development
Texas fuel
contracts in
contracts?
Texas. You realize you know less about this company than the intern standing behind you. You own it. You run it. In every legal and financial sense, SpaceX answers to you. You have no idea what you're doing. By week 2, 4 foreign governments have requested meetings. With you, personally. Because you own the satellite internet infrastructure they depend on. Because you own the platform their heads of state use to communicate with their citizens. One government makes a very polite request about Starlink coverage in a specific region. The region is near an active conflict zone. Your lawyers tell you the decision is yours. You are one person, and you are being asked to make geopolitical decisions. Not because you're qualified, not because you were elected, because you woke up on a Tuesday with the right number in the right account. You ask what happens if you get it wrong. He says, wrong is relative at this level. You ask what happens to the people in the conflict zone. He pauses. He says, that's above my scope. Your best friend texts you on a Thursday. Not a call. A text. 4 words. How are you holding up? You stare at it for longer than you should. Because you used to talk every week. Long calls, catching each other up. Complaining about work, about life, about whatever. Now she's texting. She used to be your person. Now she's not sure what she is. You call her back. She picks up on the first ring.
Hey.
She sounds happy, but careful.
Okay?
She asks if you need anything.
Need anything?
You tell her you're okay.
No.
Neither of you knows what to say next. You used to never run out of things to say. You talk for 4 minutes. You both pretend it's the same as it was. It isn't. 6 weeks in, 2 a.m. You've been thinking about something your CFO said on week 1. Something she mentioned quickly, almost as a footnote. The liquid cash. The $3 to $5 billion sitting in accounts that technically aren't tied to the companies. And you start thinking, nobody said this was permanent, and nobody said you had to give everything back. You call one person, not a lawyer on retainer, not your CFO, a guy you know, went to school with, works in private wealth management in Singapore, has handled money for people who needed it to be quiet. You tell him you need to move some money, quietly, into structures that belong to you, not to the estate, not to the companies, not to whatever legal framework is currently unraveling this whole situation. He asks how much. You say, enough to never be normal again. But not so much that anyone notices before it's done. $150 million, moved in pieces, into a trust. It takes 11 days, routed through a holding company in Luxembourg, then through a real estate fund in the Cayman Islands that technically owns nothing except a shell that owns another shell. By the time the lawyers figure out how to reverse the original transfer, by the time the courts get involved, by the time some forensic accountant starts pulling at threads, the money is already somewhere. It's very difficult to follow. Not impossible to follow, just difficult enough that it's not the first fight anyone wants to pick. On day 47, you get a call from a federal judge's clerk. The original transfer is being reversed. Court order, effective immediately. Every share, every subsidiary, every patent, Every debt goes back to Elon. You hang up the phone. The $300 billion is gone. The board meetings are gone. The death threats, the Senate hearings, the 5 a.m. alarms. Gone. But the $150 million in Luxembourg? Still there. Here's what the fantasy gets wrong. It assumes you're a passive passenger, that the money happens to you and you just survive it. But you had 47 days with access to the most sophisticated financial infrastructure on Earth. And you used 11 of them. The $300 billion was never yours to keep. But the $150 million? That's a different conversation. The trillionaire fantasy is about what you'd spend. The real question is what you'd do when you knew it was leaving. Turns out, the people who actually build wealth don't panic when things fall apart. They move before the window closes. You lost $299.85 billion in 47 days. You also kept $150 million that nobody can prove is yours. Your alarm goes off on a Wednesday morning. Normal bedroom, normal life. Phone's quiet. No missed calls from the SEC. No board meetings, no death threats. Somewhere in Luxembourg, there's a trust that nobody has asked about yet. $150 million, sitting quietly, waiting for you to figure out what to do with it. You are back to normal, except you're not. Not really, not anymore.